Good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is Point of View. This is a wonderful day. I'm so thankful. Thank you so much for being with me. This is Thursday. It is the 25th of January in the year 2024. And isn't it a blessing? Isn't it a privilege to be alive and have our reasonable portion of health and strength on this day? Thank you, thank you, thank you for being with me. Most of all, thank you, God, for blessing us to be here today. Dear God, as I sit before you to speak, I pray to you that my soul you will keep. And if I should die before I finish, I pray to you, dear God, in the name of Jesus, that any outstanding sins will be forgiven. Amen. I'm praying for you also that the Lord will give you whatever your heart desires according to his will. Whatever your need is, I'm asking God to supply it now in the name of Jesus. And I believe that he will do it. Point of view, the ladies are not with me today. I thank God I'm going on in the name of Jesus, and they will be back. They will be back. They will be back. They're working. They're working. They will be back. I believe it and I receive it. I am going to talk about it's still happening. And what's still happening? Domestic violence. I was watching a movie last night, well, yesterday evening, and it was showing the different people, the different ages of people, the children's, how it affects the children, and all of that. It was like a mini series, and it just brought this to mind. And I said, it's still happening. It's still happening. It's happening to men, women, and children, and it's happening all over the world. And so we have this saying, say, if you see something, say something. And it's not good to try to jump in the middle of things, but most everybody has a cell phone. They can report it. And we can't control the individuals, but we can, if we see something, say something. And you have to do it with caution. Be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. And we can all pray to the Heavenly Father. We can all pray to Him, and we can rebuke that evil that is rampant in this world. This is one of them. So I'm going to go, and I want you to see something. This always amazes me. It's the worldometer, and it records everything that's happening in this world, and it's constantly running, constantly. And sometimes I can't stand to watch it for a long time, an extended period of time. I mean, not even 4 or 5 minutes, because it really does just seems like it makes me dizzy. But I want you to see this. If you've never seen it, I want you to see this and see how it is keeping time on life, death, everything. I want you to see this. I am going to go to it here, to this clock. This is the worldometer. I'm going to get to it so I can scroll it and let you see what's going on here. And you can see right here, I'm going to go up. You can see where it is recording the current world population. You see that. You see where it's births this year, and it's just constantly moving. Births today. Uh, Deaths this year is even recording deaths. It's recording the deaths today. This is just going on here on this day. It's the net population growth this year and the net population growth today. Then it does the government and economic statistics, the timing on that, society and media. It does the environment and food, even food. It does all of this and it's constantly running. It tells us about water, how much energy we use. All of that is constantly running and it's health, that health. There's so much on this worldometer, and I just want you to see how it's running, just constantly. It never, ever, ever stops. It's recording everything that's going on in this world today, even every nanosecond a child is being born. Every nanosecond, someone is leaving this world and someone is coming in at the same time. I just want you to see this. It is amazing. It is amazing. This is the worldometer. The worldometer. You can see that right here. The worldometer. Right there. Oh, I don't want to move it, but that's what it is. So I'm going to turn that off. And I just want you to see it. It's the seriousness of things that are happening in this day and time. And there is a clock that's keeping up with everything that's going on in this world. Thank God for Jesus. I don't believe I could stand to look at it if I didn't know that we have a place that we can go and live throughout eternity, and that's with God. So, what is still happening today? Domestic violence, and it affects everybody. It affects everybody. So, I am going to go and talk about, I guess I'll do the psychology today first, talking about domestic violence. And there's not a date on this, and it's been reviewed by the Psychology Today staff. And it's spousal abuse, intimate partner violence. Domestic violence occurs when a person consistently aims to control their partner through physical, sexual, or emotional abuse. The United States Department of Justice defines domestic violence as a pattern of abusive behavior in any relationship that is used by one partner to gain or maintain control over another intimate partner. Talking about domestic violence, it's still happening. And we're going to talk about our content here is understanding domestic violence, identifying an abusive partner, how abuse impacts victims, and overcoming domestic violence. And then I have a piece, this is Psychology Today. Then I have another piece that's going to tell how it affects children. Then another piece is going to, let me get over here and see this, the cause of domestic violence. So that I might not get to all of it today, but I'm going to get into it. Understanding domestic violence. This is Psychology Today. Domestic violence. It can be physical or psychological, and it can affect anyone of any age, gender, race, or sexual orientation. It may include behaviors meant to scare, to physically harm, or control a partner. This domestic violence is no joke. And Clee had that hand signal, and when she comes back, she'll give you that, but you can always look that up where you can signal to people if you're in danger. And there are so many ways. And while every relationship is different, domestic violence typically involves an unequal power dynamic in which one partner tries to assert control over the other in a variety of ways, not just one way, but a variety of ways, by insults, by threats, emotional abuse, and sexual coercion, all constitute domestic violence. And I remember, this is kind of personal, but Elder Davis told me when we married each other, he said he would never force himself on me. And he never, ever, ever did. Some people think when they marry a person, and some even think when they have just a relationship, not married, that they have control over another person's body. But that is not true. So this domestic violence could be insults, threats, emotional abuse, and sexual coercion all constitute domestic violence. Some perpetrators may use children, pets, or other family members as emotional leverage to get their victim to do what they want victims of domestic violence, uh, what they want. So, victims of domestic violence experience diminished self worth. This is serious. Anxiety, depression, and a general sense of helplessness that can take time and often professional help to overcome. There are some people who never, ever overcome it. Never, ever overcome it. A clinician who works with victims of domestic violence may be able to help an individual extract her or himself from the situation, as well as offer psychological support. So I encourage you, if you know someone, try to help them as much as you possibly can without endangering yourself. Help them to get some help. If you can't help them, if you're not equipped to help them, help get them some help some way, somehow. Because we can't control them, because there are some people that will go right back to the perpetrator, that go right back to him or her, put themselves right back in that danger because of psychological problems that they have that they can't break away. And that's part of an illness or sickness too. So there's so many things to consider in this, and this really, 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 it really gets next to me, really. And there are people oh my goodness, I've been in the situation also. I have been in that situation also, but I got out. I got out, and I thank God. It was more than once, but thank God I got out. I got out with my life and without taking someone else's life. There are so many things to consider. This domestic violence is not anything to take lightly. It is serious business. And it's so hard to understand why someone would want to inflict serious harm on another human being, and especially one that they feel like is of a weaker vessel than them. Or if they feel like that this person loves me so much that they won't hurt me, I can do whatever I want to with them because I love you. That's why I do this and all that. Please, 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 no longer accept that. Don't be fooled by it. As Cleaster would say, get some yonder. And you have to be wise. You have to be wise in doing so. So let me get back into this. What types of abuse constitute domestic violence? Abusive relationships can take many different forms, such as physical abuse that could be hitting, pushing, or denying medical care. Emotional abuse could be manipulation, threats, or name calling. Sexual abuse could be rape, assault, or pressuring the person to have sex. And economic abuse, withholding funds or putting someone in debt. And on that show I was watching, they said one husband had bought a car, had put so much debt on the wife's name. He bought a car and the wife didn't even drive. Just put her into so much debt. And in one situation, this lady was like in her 50s or 60s, and her husband was so controlling over her. She had a job, and that was her way to escape him because he was so controlling. And one night she went out, and I know he'd been doing this for years. She went out the door to put something in the trash in the rain. She ran out and then came back, and he locked her out all night long. Then she was walking, and a policeman saw her, and then he took her to the station, then called her husband, and she had to go right back into that mess. So she finally got the courage up to leave. She finally did, but then I'll try to get that and post that show that I was watching. But people of all different ages and everything. It's just manipulation. You're talking about the money, building up debt on the people and all of that, the sexual uh, abuse and all of that. This is domestic violence. This is happening within the home. Within the home. This is serious, serious business. Why do partners become abusive? Abuse is driven by the desire to control. It's driven by the desire to control, to maintain power in the relationship and assume a position of superiority. Violence also involves troubling cultural norms, particularly in cases of men sexually assaulting women. Whether the brain perceives the partner as part of the self or not may also play a role, research suggests. What prevents partners from reporting abuse? This is something. What prevents partners from reporting it? There's a multitude of reasons why victims don't report sexual abuse in general, and domestic violence only involves more complexity. So, research on spousal rape, for example, finds that many survivors did not resist due to fear of injury, fear of their efforts being futile, and fear of how that resistance would influence the marriage. This is terrible. Now, how has technology changed domestic violence? I think these are some extras. Technology has enabled domestic abusers to track and stalk their victims, communicate with them incessantly, and wield power through digital devices in the home, such as remote controlled alarm systems, thermostats, and lighting. So these tactics create a sense of complete control, instilling fear, isolation, and humiliation in victims. My goodness. How do we identify an abusive partner? Identifying an abusive partner. Abusers abusers aren't easy to spot. And some of them are so slick and they are so nice to other people, to people can not even imagine them being so cruel to their partner. But I'm here to tell you, it happens. And people say, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't believe it. That's just not like him. That's just not like her. So identifying an abusive partner. Abusers are not easy to spot. In public, they can seem smart, trustworthy, and charming with a personality that draws people in, but in private, they are a waking nightmare, and that is no exaggeration. Many abusers learn violence from their family and repeat the toxic patterns with their own partner or children. They are also more likely to have legal and substance abuse problems. Heterosexual male abusers often believe in traditional gender roles, particularly that a woman's main priority should be to care for their partner and children. They have to be in control and are especially prone to jealousy, accusing their partner of cheating without any reason or needing to know where their partner is at all times. Oh, that's so familiar. How do abusive partners act? How do they act? This is serious, serious business. And I ask you if you would please share this information, share this video. Thank you so much for being with me today. I love you so much. I love you so much. Abusers often isolate their victims from family, friends, work, and any other outside sources of support. They may have explosive tempers and become violent during an abusive episode. Afterward, they become remorseful and try to woo their partner back with charm and affection and promises to change, but the abusive behavior rarely stops. I remember a situation where this person was abusive, very abusive. And when the lady finally got away from him, she had to hide her way to work. She had to ride with someone else. Then he started sending flowers to her, started wooing her. And he finally got her to him and he killed her. He killed her. He beat her and abused her so bad they could not show her body. And this is something I know about. And you know, I'm so thankful to God that He has spared my life. He spared yours if you ever have been abused. And sometimes it's not because we cannot deal with the abusers, because my thing was I didn't want to hurt him. I didn't want to hurt him, but yet I was being abused. You know, I don't talk about this much. But I thank God, I thank God, I thank God that He saw us through it, that He saw us through it. And I tell you, when God put Ella Davis and me together, I tell you, it was such a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful marriage. And I thank Him for that. I really, really do. So let me go on. How can you tell if you're in an abusive relationship? Abusive relationships center around control and power. Common tactics that perpetrators use include: number one, a pattern of violence, episodes interspersed with apologies, gifts, and promises to stop. Number two, isolating the victim from friends, family, hobbies, or even their job. Someone told me that he wanted to take me away from all of my family and acquaintances. And that was 50 red flags right there. Why would anybody want to take you completely away from your familiar, familial, and your familiar? Why? What's that about? Of course, you see me right here now, don't you? Didn't go for it because that was like me. Like I said, it could be 50 red flags. When somebody says to you, I'm going to take you away from your family, I'm going to take you from everybody, we're just going to get us a fresh start, just the two of us. Be very, very, very careful, okay? Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it might work, but do you want to take that chance? All right, number three. Number two, isolating the victim from friends, family, hobbies, or even their job. And just, I was telling you about that lady who was in her 50s or 60s, and she could have been younger than that. But you know, when people have wear and tear on them from abuse and all that, you know, they can match the people up to the movies. Of course, we understand that, to the roles. But this woman's husband went to her job and told them that she didn't need to be working anymore. And they took him at his word. And then when she called them, they had already replaced her with somebody else. Just that quick. Isolating the victim from friends, family, hobbies, or even their job. It happens. Number three, instilling guilt in the victim for their behavior and wanting more freedom or wanting more freedom. People just, this control thing is something else. Now, what are signs of domestic violence? Here we go. Outside of physical abuse, subtler signs of domestic violence or abuse include extremely controlling behavior, aggression, blame, and severe jealousy and possessiveness. One of the most concerning signs of domestic violence is strangulation. Oh my goodness. I know about that. Studies find that abuse involving strangulation is one of the strongest predictors of attempting or completing a murder. You know, how could a person, and I don't want to know that in my mind. So that's why somebody else is writing, because they've done these studies on these people and they're telling us what to look for, telling us, and I'm spreading the word, okay? How can you a narcissistic spot narcissistic abuse? The drive for power and authority, while instilling doubt, shame, and dependence in their partner, characterizes narcissistic abuse. Perpetrators may blame the victims and refuse to take any responsibility for their behavior. They may isolate and denigrate the victim or leverage verbal abuse and manipulation, blame you and say all kinds of things about you and talk down on you, belittle you, accuse you of things that you've never ever done, never thought about doing. But this is what it is. How abuse impacts victims. It can take time before victims of domestic violence recognize their situation for what it is, and that is so true. Abuse often leaves physical marks, from bruises and broken bones to shortness of breath and involuntary shaking. Seeming more prone to accidents than the average person can be a warning sign that someone is being abused. Abuse victims can also suffer both short and long term emotional and psychological effects, including feelings of confusion or hopelessness, depression, anxiety, panic attacks, and post-traumatic stress syndrome or disorder, excuse me. Post-traumatic stress disorder. That's PTSD. This is how abuse impacts a victim. What are the consequences of domestic violence? Domestic violence is the most common cause of injury for women, leading to even more injuries than car accidents. Man, that is something, isn't it? The physical consequences can be short term, such as bruises, pain, and broken bones, or long term, such as arthritis, hypertension, and cardiovascular disease. The lasting consequences psychologically include depression and post traumatic stress disorder. This is some serious business. If you're in it, get out of it, but use wisdom, but be swift about it. Don't let the person know that you are planning to leave, but you have to strategically plan, and you can't leave any room for error, but you have to get away. And when you get away, stay away, because normally 9 out of 10 chances they are not going to stop. They can beg you and cry, get on their knees, all this stuff. Ask me how I know. I know. And then they don't change. They don't change, not toward you. How often is domestic violence perpetrated against men? I remember I had a You Can convention in Denison, and Deacon McKnight was one of my uh, speakers. Uh, Sister McKnight, Jewel, his wife, was a speaker. Pam, their daughter, was a speaker. And I think I spoke to, we had a You Can convention, and Pastor Evans let us have it at Hopewell Baptist Church. And you know what? The thing is that jealousy is as cruel as the grave. Some people planned, Lord Jesus, let me go ahead. Nine, excuse me, I'm not going to go there. How often is domestic violence perpetrated against men? The thing is, people should help other people help other people, because people never know when they're going to need that help themselves. So instead of being jealous and malicious and manipulating other people and trying to discourage other people from supporting other people, people should work together to try to help other people and try to rectify some of the evil that's being done by helping in some positive way. If we don't work together, we cannot have a big impact on anything. And that's one of them. That is the major thing: jealousy and envy. But we must come together to help others. And the Greater Gospel Temple for Saturday is do unto others. Do unto others. Because that you do to others, that's coming right back to you. Whether it's good or bad, it's coming back. Do unto others in a good way. Help somebody. Help somebody. And when you need help, somebody will be there to help you. How often is domestic violence perpetrated against men? And that's what I was going to say. Sister McKnight, she brought out the part where men are are victims also, not just women, but men are victims of domestic violence also. Yes, they are. 9% of men may experience domestic violence, which includes stalking, sexual abuse, and physical violence, according to one UK study. Other research studies suggest that 28% of men experience intimate partner violence in the US. Men face distinct hurdles getting help, and that's for sure. And the thing in that movie was that one man did question, "Do you help men? I don't see many men. Do you help? Is there enough help and aid for men of domestic violence?" And that is a fair question. But so many times men are too ashamed to uh, own up to it or admit that they are being abused, more men than women. Men face distinct hurdles getting help because they can be pathologized, not believed, or denied assistance from shelters created for women. And that's a fact. So, what challenges do male victims of domestic violence face? And that is true. Some people say, "Well, you're a man, how are you going to be abused?" Men often don't support domestic violence due to fear. They don't report it, excuse me. Men often don't report domestic violence due to fear, shame, denial, stigma, and lack of equal treatment. As a result, men minimize the abuse to protect themselves. One study participant explained that he feared being laughed at, humiliated, are reversely accused of being the abuser due to a belief that men are physically capable of fighting back when being challenged. And one thing in that series and miniseries, there, and the man had me thinking that he was being abused by the wife. They had, now it's very seldom can they fool me in these movies, but this one had me thinking the way he was twisting it that the woman was the abuser, but it turned out that it wasn't her. It was not her. And he even went to court and stood on the thing that she was the abuser. Oh my Lord, how does domestic violence affect children? My goodness. So, men often don't report it because of shame and all of that. And some people feel like men are strong enough. And I had just said that they could fight back. So how can they be abused? Now, how does domestic violence affect children? Domestic violence can instill fear and confusion in a child, all while their caregiver is often physically or emotionally unavailable. Children who witness domestic violence are more likely to struggle with insomnia, bedwetting, verbal, motor, or cognitive challenges, anxiety, depression, self harm, aggression, and domestic violence as an adult. This is so true. My goodness, children are be traumatized. Traumatized. Overcoming domestic violence. Leaving an abusive relationship is exceptionally challenging, both emotionally and practically. The process involves acknowledging the abuse that's occurring. Here we go. Finding support to leave safely and processing the experience and the remaining pain or fear. Survivors can gradually work to rebuild the self esteem that was damaged in the relationship. developing a non-judgmental support system, practicing self-care, and discussing the experience with a mental health professional can help survivors in the aftermath of the relationship. And don't forget, peace of mind counseling is my service. You can call me 24/7, text me, message me. If you need help, I'm here. I'm here to help in any way I possibly can. And I know how to get you to someone else for certain uh, assistance that you will need. So I'm not going to try to do it all myself, but I will do what I am certified to do. Why do people stay in abusive relationships? Identifying a pattern of abuse and making the decision to leave can be incredibly difficult. A few of those barriers include financial stress, having nowhere else to go, the threat of violence, and the lack of support from law enforcement. For real. Family and social expectations may also create pressure to stay, especially when children are involved. So, now, how can survivors heal from domestic violence? Survivors first need to acknowledge, this is very important and it's been said more than once in here. Survivors first need to acknowledge the abusive relationship. Realize that this is real. This is happening. Acknowledge it and accept that it's happening to you. Then you can go further, or whoever it is, but you must acknowledge the abusive relationship. Writing down a partner's behavior to identify patterns and speaking with a trusted friend or family member can help. And you have to be really, really careful. Now, if you know somebody has a habit of gossiping and carrying tales and telling other folks' business, that's not the one to talk to unless that's the only one around and you're talking to them while you're running and getting on out of the way. Don't give them a chance to get to that abuser to let them know where you are. Reaching out to a domestic violence organization can help with developing a safety plan to leave, and speaking with a therapist can help process the experience and rebuild self esteem. Some people have been tortured mentally and physically, and until they're just unrecognizable, not the same person that we knew because of the situation they were in. How can society fight domestic abuse? Society can empower rather than stigmatize abuse victims by directing them to supportive resources, making mental health care accessible and affordable, and developing and evaluating prevention programs. Since financial strain is a key component, workplaces can help by creating policies to protect and support employees who are victims of intimate partner violence. Need to do more. Need to do more. My goodness. The difficulty of making sense of public and private abuse. If making sense of public abuse is hard, what does that mean for processing and disclosing abuse that happens in private? Oh my goodness, this is something else. And it goes on to talk about the Stockholm Syndrome, why some people bond with abusive partners. This is full, isn't it? How isolation, fear, and intermittent kindness can lead some victims to sympathize with their abusers. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So, this is a psychology today. So, I want to uh, do this about how It affects children. How does domestic violence impact children? And this, I'm going to have to get a little closer here so I can see what this site is. This is healthymarriageinfo.org. Healthymarriageinfo.org. How does domestic violence impact children? This is something, and you've seen situations where the the parent, in order to keep themselves from being beat or abused, they let the person take it out on the children, and without even trying to protect the child or anything, or too afraid or whatever to do that. There's so many things, so many reasons for that people give for all of this. So how does it affect children? Slightly more than half of female victims of intimate violence live in households with children under 12. More than half. Conservatively, at least 10% to 20% of children are estimated to be exposed to intimate partner violence yearly, with as many as one third exposed at some point during childhood or adolescence. 3.3 million to 17.8 million youth. That's a whole bunch of people. Absent intervention and support, many of these children are at greater risk of developing psychiatric disorders, development problems, developmental problems, school failure, violence against others, and low self-esteem. And then, that we have to train our children at home to be kind to others, to people they don't understand. If you can't communicate with them, don't be mean and hateful to them. If they're quiet, withdrawn, or whatever, don't make fun of them. You don't know. 9 chances out of 10, you don't know what they're going through. So we should train our children to be kind and do unto others as they want others to do unto them. That's it in a nutshell, because some people are suffering. They are suffering due to domestic violence, intimate partner violence. It doesn't just affect the one person that is being done to. If you have children, it's affecting them, it's affecting the extended family all around. So they are also more likely to attempt suicide, talking about the effect it has on children, the effectiveness of it. It affects the children, okay? They are also more likely to attempt suicide, abuse drugs and alcohol, run away from home, engage in teenage prostitution, and commit sexual assault crimes. This is the effect it has on children. However, many children appear to survive such exposure and show no greater problems than non-exposed children. And so that's a good thing. I'm glad they're putting the positive in here. The resilience literature suggests that as assets in the child's environment increase, problems be are problems, let me go back. The resilience literature suggests that as assets in the child's environment increase, problems he or she experience may actually decrease. Protective adults, including the child's mother, relatives, neighbors, and teachers, or other siblings and friends may all play protective roles in a child's life, as does the child's larger social environment. That means extended family, the church, sports, social clubs, and whatever like that. If it sets to provide support or and to the child during stressful times. And that's where you have to watch these people that you let your children be around. Don't give other people full control over your children. There's so much in this, but I'm going to go on. I don't know how long I've been on here. Let me check my time and see how long I've been going. Oh my, I've been going for 51 minutes and 16 seconds. There's one other thing that I want to do here. The cost of domestic violence. The cost. And let me see, there's some way I'm supposed to be able to close this out. It came up again on me. I did it a while ago. Need to close this out. Let me do this. I might have to just close it out because it's doing some kind of ad thing here. So I don't know. I might not get to do that, but I want to do the cost of domestic violence, but I'm not going to get to do that because I was able to close this out earlier, but I don't know whether I'm going to be able to do it or not. Let me see. Okay, let me see. All right, there it is. Got it, got it, got it. The cost of domestic violence. And here I go. It's something, everybody. Intimate partner violence racks up a $5.8 billion bill every year. Every year, $5.8 billion. Every minute, 20 people in the U.S. become victims of intimate partner violence. It's every minute. The effects of domestic abuse run the gamut from bruises to homicide and everything in between. While this epidemic costs many things, marriages, childhoods, lives, it also has very real and very significant monetary costs as well. And I'm taking my time with this, but I'm not going to exceed my hour. Don't plan on doing that. They say everything has a price, and violence is no different. And below are the numbers of what it costs and all. And this is domesticshelters.org. Domesticshelters.org. They say everything has a price, and violence is no different. $5.8 billion. And it's the approximate amount domestic violence costs in total per year in the US. In the US, medical and healthcare costs take up $4.1 billion of that. But keep in mind that statistics show less than 1/5 of survivors reporting injuries from domestic abuse sought medical treatment. Productivity losses at places of employment account for the remaining $1.8 billion of this total cost. 8 million, the number of paid work days per year that survivors of domestic violence will miss in the U.S. That's 8 million days. My goodness. This stuff is something else. 5.6 million. The estimated number of days of household productivity just lost as a result of domestic violence. 5.6 million. 483. The average cost a trip to the emergency room will cost a female survivor of domestic violence. That's $483. That's the cost, the average cost of a trip. 18.5 million. The number of mental health visits by survivors of intimate partner violence each year. Third, domestic violence. Third, domestic violence is the third leading cause of homelessness among families. And so we can see more domestic violence uh, topics because many of us not directly affected by domestic violence can feel at a loss for now to help curb it. If survivors are suffering silently among us, how will we begin to step in? Robert Pearl, MD, recently told Forbes magazine how employers can help and play a pivotal role. And it said that employed individuals spend the majority of their waking hours at work. So that's why employers are really suited to spot the symptoms of domestic violence and intervene. Senior executives can promote a culture that includes domestic violence awareness and prevention. So, information about domestic violence should be shared at every employee orientation. It should be uh, addressed at every occupational health visit. And that is so, so true. So, additionally, suggests Pearl managers need to understand that domestic violence may explain absenteeism and ongoing health problems. They should be trained to recognize potential signs of domestic violence, including signs of depression and evidence of physical harm. Some people can see it and won't try to do anything about it. You can find more economic impacts of domestic violence in the statistics section of this site. And uh, is www.cdc.gov. www.cdc.gov. Violence prevention. And then www.ncadv.org slash files. That's domestic violence fact sheet. So, okay, thank you so much for being with me today. This is a serious, serious subject, and I thank you so much for being with me. And I'm praying for you, and I know you're praying for and with me. And thank God for us. And the piece I did on Tuesday said, we're not survivors, we're thrivers. We're all thriving, we're all thriving, and we are praying that others will thrive too. I love you so much. Thank you so much for watching Point of View on this day. You are awesome. And I pray that God will continually bless and keep you in His will and that you will want to be kept in His will. And I'm going to end this with my psalm, and I call it Shirley's Psalm, and it is a prayer for the world. So let me get to here, and I'm gonna have to get a little close. Can you feel it? Can you hear it? I think that is in here. Can you hear it? Can you feel it? Here it goes. Can you hear it? Can you feel it? I'm going to restart this to make sure. I want to share this screen, so let me see how I'm going to do this. So I can share this screen, and then I'm going to be going off, going off. Okay, let me get it here. I can. How am I going to do that? Okay, here we go. I'll just share that. Okay, here we go. All right. I love you. Thank you so much for being with me. I'm going to end on this song. This is Can You Hear It? Can You Feel It? And I want you to listen to the words, please.